Welcome back to part 2 of VR Basic Bytes. Our starting point is we can drop the different colored bags onto the Cornhole board, and now we're going to do some programming to keep score. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is in my course library, I'm going to throw a table out here so I can actually throw my bags onto a table. This one looks good. We'll throw that in here. Get that situated here. We'll even do the holding the V key to grab a vertex, grab the bottom of this and set it flat on the ground, then let go of V. Then I can move it around. And I think that's actually probably going to be a little large. Let's go like 0.6. A little small. 0.8. That'll work. Okay. Grab the V key again, snap it down there. There we go. Let's throw the bags up on there. And then make some duplicates. There, that looks pretty good. Did a little organizing there with creating an empty and then just renaming these so I have them all. A little Control S. Now I could play the game by myself, I guess, throwing the bags on the board and keeping score myself. However, our objective here is our little user interface here. We're going to be able to keep track of a few things. Let's set up our user interface a little bit nicer. Let's open up our canvas. We have our, I'm going to do everything that is text and just start it with label underscore. And same here. And that way I can move these up here. 36 probably about right. Let's call this our BG image for background. Maybe make that a little taller, a little wider. So we got lots of room for our scoreboard. And let's move this one over a little. Okay. So our actual scores, I'm going to do the same thing. Anything that is an actual value, I'm going to start with score. So this will be score blue. Let's call this one round. Yeah, let's do round and then score orange round. And then move those about here-ish. Oops, don't want to scale that just yet. Probably set these at about 24 a piece. Could have done those together. And then that'll be about here. Actually, let's do those together. Here-ish, and then I'll put the text in the middle. Make this box a little smaller. Whoa, it's a really wide box. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now, let's get some new text here. Let's take my label orange here and just put it about right here. Go down to 22-ish. We'll call this round score. And that'll be on each one of those. And then we'll take all three of those. Let's label this real quick. And then my score, this, that. Let's duplicate that and move it down. We'll call this score blue total, score orange total, and label round score, no, total score, sorry. And make it say that. Okay, so now we have some actual text we can change. And now to set up the board, we have it set up so that the this whole piece has a mesh collider, right? And then this triangle piece has just a box collider. Works really well. I can make it a little thicker so things don't fall through there. I'm going to make a couple of objects in here. Let's just make them cubes. And we're going to make basically an area that hovers on top of the board to detect bags hitting it, and then shape inside the hole there. So inside our cornhole board, I'm going to make a cube right on here. And that keeps that angle that I want. And then we will resize that way. Still too big. About yay by ish, right? And something like that. Okay. Actually, before I do that move, let's do a local here. So we're moving up and down the axis here. I'm going to set this right inside of there, actually. And stretch that up a little bit. And put it right in there. That should pretty much hit anything we need to. There we go. Floating up there. Now I'm going to turn the mesh renderer off, so now I basically just have this zone here, and we're going to make it a trigger. So a trigger is making it so, just like when you walk into Walmart, you don't push a button to open the door, you just kind of enter a zone, and that triggers an event. So this is going to be a trigger zone. And then I'm going to make another cube to go inside of there that is just going to be a plain old cube. I'm not going to make it a child because I want it flat, but then I will make it a child. So that's a really large cube. Shrink that way down. Put that inside of there. And let's kind of go underneath here. Make this a lot flatter. Roughly there. Oops. There. Oh, not going to be wide enough this way. There. That should catch anything that goes down in there. And again, we'll turn that mesh renderer off and make this a trigger so that anything that lands inside of this will trigger that. Alright, got that set up. Save it. Alright, let's get a little organized here. Let's collapse that. We got some old bean bags we don't need. We'll delete those. This cube is my in-hole detector. Put that one as a child of the cornhole board. And then I have this cube here that's floating up top with that trigger collider. We're going to call this on board detector. And that's already a child of the cornhole board. Very good. And we're going to make a couple of new scripts. So go into our cornhole scripts and let's create a C# script there. We're going to call this the scorer in hole. And we're going to make another one called scorer on board. And let's get started with those. Let's open it up in Microsoft Visual Studio. Alright, here we are in Visual Studio. Basically what we're going to do is check for the collision and see what the tag is. So we'll tag those bags so it knows what it's colliding with. So we don't need this stuff actually. All we really need is a on trigger enter. So I just go down to here and hit enter and it makes all this, which is awesome. And then we're going to say if other, which is matching this, it has to match that. In other words, the thing that hit us, if that game object, you can see the autocomplete there, I'm just hitting the tab key, dot, now we're going to use a function called compare tag, so it's going to look at the tag of that, and let's look for the blue. And if that's the case, open a curly brace, hit enter, it does all the nice indents for you. For now, we're just going to do a debug.log and say blue hit board. Put a semicolon on the end there. And then we're basically going to also check for the orange. So I'm just going to paste this, and this is technically an else if. So in other words, if this happens, do this. Otherwise, if this happens, and we're looking for the orange tag, and this would say orange hit board. Now back in Unity, I changed this from maximized to focused, so it'll play just like this. And we need to actually tag all of our bags. So let's click and shift click those. And we don't have a blue yet, so need a blue tag, need an orange tag. Let's select those again. And those will be tagged blue. These will be tagged orange. And one other thing I forgot was my onboard detector. That is a trigger. That is a trigger. And yes, this is in fact looking for triggers that are blue and orange. And it would really help if we attached our scripts. So the onboard detector gets that one, the in-hole detector gets that one. Now let's play test it. So in VR, drop the orange one on the board, drop the blue one on the board, check our console here, and make sure this is actually turned on or else you'll see nothing. And sure enough, that is detecting that. Let's drop another orange on there. Sure enough, it is detecting that. Very good. Now, as far as the scoring goes, we're going to need to have some form of a game manager. And so I went and looked at my Carnival cans from episode 1, and we're going to do a very similar thing. So I'm just going to create another C# script. We'll call this the game manager. And then we'll open that up, of course. And if I look at my old script from episode 1, basically we need to include the library TM Pro. That makes really crisp text. That just gives you the ability to use that really crisp text. And then we have a variable to hold that score text, and then the actual integer value of it. So in my game manager, I know I'm going to do the using TM Pro so it can use the text. And then just like we did here, I'm just going to copy and paste this for speed's sake. Go in here. Let's put that in there, and we'll call this orange round score text. And let's do camel casing, so we'll make that a lowercase o. And then we'll call this orange round score value. And then we're just gonna duplicate that. And this one will be blue. And this one will be blue. And it's gonna bother me if I don't line these up. So I'm gonna put that in there. There we go. So now we have text, and we have an actual integer value. And we need to be able to know when, let's say, when this happens, we need to say, and this is just pseudocode, is tell game manager to increase score +1, right? And same thing for down here. So game manager orange round score, game manager blue round score. It's not capitalized right, I realize. But that's what we're trying to do. So a cool little trick here is to actually create a variable the other script. So I can say public, and I'm going to say it's of type manager, and name it with camel case game manager. What that means is it's actually tying itself to this, so I can see that. So now when I type in the lowercase game manager, because that's the name of what I'm looking for, when I hit dot, it actually sees the blue round score value. Tab key, we're going to plus equals 1 that, which is to add 1 to it. And just to make sure it's actually showing up, we'll say blue round score, and we'll concatenate that with this long thing here. So show us that value, and then we're basically going to do the exact same thing down here, except this is for orange. Orange round score, show us the orange value, round score value, save it. And then back in Unity, see my onboard detector, it's looking for a game manager. I can actually, I don't have a game manager object yet. That's something else. Let's just create an empty, and we'll call this game manager, and we'll throw that script on there. And this should go find it. Let's see if that works. But for my board, my onboard detector, score detector, needs to have the game manager dropped in there. And let's see if it goes and finds it, or if it just gives us errors because it doesn't know where to find it. If that's the case, we'll just drag and drop those in there. Let's see what happens. So I'm in VR. Here. There's the orange one. Hey, it did drop. It did go find it. I was hoping it would. Look at that. It's keeping score for us. Now we need to make it change the text. Now back here in my scorer onboard, I'm going to take out this just to clean this up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to take that out too. Take out this debug log. We know that's working. We'll do the same down here. Take these out. This debug log out. Just to clean it up a little bit. Now we already have on our game manager, we have this text. We need to change this text. And if we look at our old throwing the tomatoes at the cans from episode 1, we know that we can just say, okay, that variable here, that text mesh pro UGUI, that's fancy for the crystal clear text. We say that its property of text should be this plus whatever that value is, but converted to a string. A string is just text. So we're basically going to do the same thing here. We're going to do a little update score function, just like we did in the scorekeeper cans here. So I'm going to make this public void update score with some empties here, and then here we'll just call that function and say, okay, after you add a point, go ahead and update the score. You just type in the name, whoops, forgot my parentheses, update score and update score, which as soon as it adds one to the value, it will go down, see this, and jump down here where we want it to do. We need to reference our dot, and then what's it called? Orange round score text. We need to update both of them, and then we'll do the math on who gets points actually for the actual round score, but let's start here. So we need to go here and say the orange round score text has a property of text, right? It's got a property of font, alignment, font size, all kinds of different things that you could change on it. But we want to change its text and set it equal to, I'm going to just do like a little concatenation here just for fun, just to make sure it's working. Test orange. and then we want the actual this value, right? So we'll say throw that on there, but it needs to be the string version of it. And we know from here we need the variable dot toString with empty parentheses. There we go, and it did not find it. Oh, because we have to tell it where it's at. Game manager dot. There, so it says go on there, find the actual value, but make it a string. So it looks like a lot of code, but all it's doing is grabbing the value and making it a string. And then we actually need to do basically the exact same thing, except this time it's going to change the blue round score text, and we'll make this test blue, and it needs to find the blue score value. And so both of those values should change. Every time we score a point, it's going to run that function. So let's test it out. It did not change the text. Oh, you know what? I don't think it knows where to go find that. Yep, exactly, right here. Not set to an instance of an object. Line 27. It does not like my, it doesn't know where that text is. So if we jump back in here and go to my game manager, let's just set our text right here. So in our canvas, we have our score orange round would be here. Score blue round would be here. Now let's try it again. Those errors should go away. I'm going to move my whole origin over a little bit because I'm looking straight down at it. But hey, it doesn't even get close to fitting. But yay, we're getting points. 2-2. Okay, so that works. Let's go ahead and take out this concatenation. We don't need that. We know that's actually showing up in the right place. Save that. Go back here. Whoops, wrong project. And inside here, we're going to shrink down the text a little bit. It's way too big. So the score orange round and score blue round, we're going to set these both to like, I don't know, 18. Score totals, let's make those also 18. They should fit. But anyways, now we are getting the score. We need to also apply those same things to the in the whole detector, except it's going to be different point values, right? So basically, this whole chunk of code is going to go on this script. Actually, the rest of it will too, now that I think about it. Let's just go ahead and grab all this. Just delete that. Paste that. So when it goes in the hole, if it's blue, it's going to add 3 and update score. And if it's orange, goes in the hole, it's going to add 3. And oh, we didn't grab our game manager. Let's fix this though. Let's go ahead and grab that from the other one too, because we need to reference the game manager. Throw that in there. So now it knows where to find it. And this will be also, yeah, that would be the same. It's just adding 3 instead of the other ones. So let's test that quick. Back on this side, we need to make sure that our in-hole detector here knows what the game manager is, or it's never going to find it. And then it should take it from there, so let's test that. So in VR here, let's move my hand out of the way. So on the board, 1, 2. Problem is you can pick them up and put them back in. I realize that. And there I added that. So one issue is going to be, oops, 0, 1. I'm trying to bounce it into the hole. There, it gave it the board points and the hole points. So one way we can prevent that is by having it actually wait a second or so until it updates the score. So if we do a quick Google search, Unity wait for seconds, in the docs.unity, we can use what's called a coroutine. So basically, a coroutine, we can control the time a little more, we can have multiple things running, or we can do things in a very specific order with time in between them. So all we're going to do is, whenever we want to start the delay, so we're going to have like a 1 second countdown and then update the score. We're going to just say start coroutine, and then that'll be our update score using enumerator, which basically means the name of the coroutine is this. And in it, we can do this thing, this yield return new wait for seconds, and that's going to be our delay. So let's go into here, and instead of update score, we're going to make this a coroutine. So if I look back here, I have enumerator. Instead of this, enumerator update score, and that is going to be passed nothing, and then it's going to do wait 1 second, and then yield return new wait for seconds. And then in parentheses, I'll put 1. And then to call that, if we look at the documentation, we say start coroutine and then the name of it in parentheses. And if we're passing any values there. So we'll say start coroutine and the name of it is this, that. So we no longer need this line. This one will replace this one. So whether it's orange or blue, it will start that coroutine, which will wait for 1 second and then update the score. Granted, I realize you could knock the bag into the hole, and that creates a whole nother thing, so you should actually do the score again at the very end of the round after all the bags have been thrown, but that's going to be a lot more code than I want to get into in the VR Basic Bytes episode. So we're going to do it this way. So that'll put a delay on it. To actually calculate the round score, we're going to make a button that actually does this. Let's put this up here and actually shrink this down a little bit. And then we're going to put a button down at the bottom to reset the game and also to calculate the round score, or the total score, I'm sorry, from the round score. So inside here, let's go into our UI and do a button text mesh pro, which is quite large. I'm going to call this button calc round score, and I'm going to shrink this all up, like that. And we'll get our little shrinky thing here, get our move tool, and I'm using the QWERTY with my left hand to change between these tools here. It should not say button. The text should say calc round score or something like that, right? And then we'll scrub this down until it fits. So let's say like 12. That'll work. Also, one other thing before I forget, under Canvas, you have to have a tracked, what is it called? Tracked device graphic raycaster, or else you won't be able to click the button at all. So the canvas allows this canvas to be interacted with, or I'm sorry, this component allows us to interact with the button that's on it. So I'm going to make it so when I click this button, it's going to actually resolve the round score and add it to the total score, whatever values it should be. So in our game manager, we need to improve this a little bit. Not only do we need the round score text, we're going to need the totals in here. So let's go ahead and make a orange total and blue total score text, as well as the totals here. So orange total and blue total score. And we don't need these. We're just going to make a function because we can call that function from that button click earlier. So we're just going to make a calculate run score function. So we're going to make it public so we can run it from anywhere. Public void, and then this is just a named set of instructions, right? So as soon as we call this from somewhere else, we'll be able to run all the steps that are inside of, oops, not a semicolon, empty curly braces. And then inside of here, basically, if orange round score is greater than blue round score, total score is going to plus equals the difference, orange minus blue, something like that, right? It's kind of the pseudocode I think through before I do the actual code. So when I run this, if orange round score value is greater than blue round score value, then we should what? Well, we need to update the total orange total score value. We're going to add to it the difference. So orange minus blue round. So orange round score value minus blue round score value. So if it's 3 to 1, it's going to say, okay, 3 minus 1 is 2, and then take that and plug it into the total and add it to it. That's what the plus equals is. It takes whatever's on the right, adds it into the left. So there's another condition, right? So else if the blue round score value is greater than the orange round score value, open curlies, then the blue total score value, enter, is going to plus equals the blue round minus the orange round. So blue round minus orange, oops, orange round score value. There we go. If it's the same, it won't do anything because neither of these conditions will be met. And then once those values are updated, the player won't see it, even though the computer will know that the value has changed. So since we have these variables up here, the total texts, we're just going to update those texts. So that orange total score text, and that's an entire game object. We just want the text of that entire game object, and we're going to set that text equal to whatever their orange total score is. So orange total score value, but we don't want the integer version of it. We want the string version of it, the text, because we're plugging it into text. So this makes it text, so I can plug into the text. And then the exact opposite, to update that one, blue total score text, and the text property will be the blue total score value, but the string version of it, oops, whoa, there we go. Okay. And let's try this out. And actually one more thing is, remember our in whole here, we created this 1 second delay so it didn't double score. We need that for the onboard too. So we need to use this coroutine. I'm just going to grab this and go into here and replace this entire function. So we have that on both, but now we need to call the coroutine, which was this line here. So in my onboard score, we'll replace that and replace that. So when it gets triggered by a blue bag, give it a point, and then start this coroutine where it will wait for 1 second, which is what's going to prevent the double scoring because that happens back to back so fast. And then, so I made a large mistake. I apologize, and instead of editing it out, I decided to explain what the mistake was and how I'm going to fix it. So I think that's more helpful. Because we're immediately awarding the point, this delay that comes from the coroutine is only going to delay how long it takes before it updates the text. The point's already awarded. So what really needs to happen is I need to check and see if it is still colliding, then give it points. So if I go back up here, we're going to introduce some new variables, and we're just going to make them booleans, which are just on-off variables like a light switch. If it is triggering, I'm going to have one for blue and one for orange. Private bool is triggering orange board, which we can turn these on and off now. We'll start them off. And then if on the trigger enter, if the thing that hit it is blue, it's a blue bag, instead of giving it the point here, we don't want to do that yet. We just want to turn on the boolean. So we will say is triggering blue board, because we're in the onboard script. That will be now true. And same thing here. We don't want to award that point right away. We want to say is triggering orange board is true. Now, to know whether it is still colliding, semicolon, if it's still colliding after the delay, this is true. If this is true, it'll start the coroutine. Well, whether it's true or not, it's just set to true. And then in the coroutine, we need to say, hey, if this is true, then give them points. Because after this wait for seconds, we need to say, if it's still triggering, basically, right? And so in here, let's go down and say, if is triggering blue board, we could say if it's true, but the shorthand version of that is just if it's this. If you want to say if it's not triggering, you would put an exclamation point there. But I want to check if is triggering blue board is true. And the shorthand way is to just put in the boolean. That's checking if it's true. But just to be explicit, we could say if it's equal to true, so it's easier to read for new programmers, which I still consider myself. Then and only then do we give them the point that was originally going to be awarded there. So, else if, basically the same thing, if is triggering orange is true, then the orange gets a point. Now, the problem is these never get a chance to even turn to false. So what should turn them to false? Well, if you throw a bag onto the board and then it slides into the hole, it exited that trigger. And so we can just check and see if that trigger has been exited. So here we can do a private void on trigger exit. So as soon as it exits, what should happen? Well, it depends on what exited. So we have to check if the other, we're doing a compare tag again to see if it was blue. Because if it was, that means a blue bag exited the board's trigger. And if that's the case, we need to turn that boolean off that awards points later on. So we need to say is triggering blue board. Well, that is now false. And we can start the coroutine, which I'm just going to copy from up here. So if whatever exited is blue, turn that off, run the coroutine, which will wait 1 second, check that boolean, which is false. And if it's false, it's not going to give it that point. So we basically need to do another one of these, except technically this should be an else if. Like another situation is potentially if it's tagged as orange is triggering orange board is false, then start the coroutine. So they only get that 1 point if that is the case. And then for the in whole version, we basically need to do the exact same thing, except this is going to seem like a lot, but I'm just going to copy all this and then change the boards to the in whole. I don't know what's faster, but let's try this. It's a lot of deleting, it seems like, but so we'll paste that. And now we're checking the in hole. So is triggering blue hole starts as false. Orange hole starts as false. And I'll copy that. So on trigger enter, if the other thing is blue, then the is triggering blue hole is true. They don't get the point yet, but it does start the coroutine. I can get rid of this, I guess. And if the thing is orange, then this would be true. Get rid of this. Start the coroutine. I know I'm going back and forth on the copying. This is probably more efficient to just do all the blues, but if whatever exited is blue, then the is triggering blue hole is false. Start the coroutine. Come back to that. And in the coroutine, checking if the blue hole is true, then they get 3, because in the holes were 3. And now let's go grab our orange and replace those. So if the thing that exited was orange, the is triggering orange hole is false. And in the coroutine, it should check if it's, if this is true, give them 3 points there. And then update the round score text, etc., etc. All right, let's check this out and see if it works. Now, one other thing is I want to be able to calculate the round score. So on that button, on click, remember there's a function in our game manager that'll calculate round score that we made earlier. So this button, when it's clicked on the game manager object, on the script game manager, run calc round score. So that will actually do the math for us. And actually one more thing is this game manager needs to know where the orange and blue total score texts are. So the score blue total here and the score orange total here. So it knows what to update for this and for this when we click on this. So in VR, all zeros. Orange, after a second, got a point. Goes in, gets 3 points instead of adding 4, which is what we want. Blue gets a point. Blue gets a point. Blue gets 3 more points. Very good. And if I hit calc round score, that goes to 1. So the last thing we need to do is set that to zeros. Now, there is one known issue, which is if this one falls in, it's going to add 3 more points, but not take off the 1 from the board. But that's getting into more complicated programming. We'd have to do some for statements and loops or making lists. And we're not going to do that for this project. The last part then is in our script here, in our game manager script, when we calculate that round score, it sets that total score, yes. However, it never resets the round scores to 0. So orange round score value needs to be zeroed out. Blue round score value needs to be zeroed out. And then we need to update the text of those. So orange round score text dot text is equal to the new value of orange round score value, which is a 0. And we need the string version of that. And then the same thing, blue round score text dot text is equal to the blue round score value dot toString. There we go. One last test to make sure everything works well. All right, orange got a point. Plus 3 points is 4. Blue got a point. plus 3 points is 4. Let's throw one more in there. Plus 3 points is 7. Calculate the round score. Sure enough, I gave it the 3 points. Again, there's a known issue where if one of these got knocked in, it would give you 3 more points but not lose that 1 point. We could write some code that would, when we hit calc round score, that does a for statement and loops through all the colliders, etc. But I think that's beyond the scope of VR Basic Bytes. So that is going to be the conclusion.